Another day of sunshine, another day of no rain. The
Mike Lawler keeps siding with Mag.
Wait a minute. What's
hello. I don't know. What are you doing? I'm doing my open for God's sake, Joe.
I don't understand. My microphone usually cuts that off. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
We're so big on high tech here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. As I was saying, we've got another day of sunshine and some more to come. The smallest hurricane ever to move on land has or to develop has moved onto Cuba and will be kicked out to the northeast. And it doesn't look like there's much rain in the next 2 weeks, not just in the Northeast, but pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard. We'll take care of all of that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you like, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by simply doing your Amazon shopping from our referral link, which is pinned to the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. When you do, you get your stuff. Amazon kicks us back a little bit of coin, and we appreciate whatever support you can give us on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Um, I found out today, Mr. Rayo, that Atlanta has not had a drop of rain, not even a trace, for the entire month of October. And if it goes through the rest of the month, and it could very well do that without even a trace of rain, it'll be the first time in Atlanta's history that they did not have uh, any kind of rainfall in the month of in any month. And by the way, I think there's a lot of cities in the east that are going to be able to make that claim once the next 10 days or so go by.
Yeah, the only cities I would think would have more than just a trace, at least some measurable, would be upstate New York and maybe northern New England, where as these upper level disturbances slide on by, they produce some showery conditions here and there. I mean, not a whole heck of a lot, but enough to make it a little bit more than just what New York or Atlanta has been seeing, which has been hardly anything, if anything at all.
Yeah, it's really getting to be very, very, uh, I don't want to use the word boring per se, but I guess from a standpoint of forecasting, it's just a little bit frustrating when every day you look at a model run and it's 16 days of no rain. And this has been going on for the better part of, more than a week now where we've been doing this. You look at something and it's like, well, doesn't look like you're going to get rain from this. Or, nope, doesn't look like we're going to get any rain from that. It is a really, really unusual dry pattern. And we showed last night that the Arctic oscillation at 5 standard deviations above the mean is the reason for the big ridge in the that's covering the eastern part of not just the eastern part, but basically everybody, you know, from the central plains, at least until today, all the way to the east coast.
It's today, for example, at the Westchester County Airport, right here in my backyard almost, the temperature reached the 79, beating the old record of 77 set back in 1969. 20 degrees above normal, Joe. And if anything, tomorrow we may see temperatures even higher, maybe reaching into the lower 80s. But don't get too used to it because, as we pointed out last night, a sharp cold front is heading our way for late Wednesday night, early Thursday. And after that front moves on through, in comes the more seasonal, typical late October temperatures that we're more accustomed to seeing, and that's going to feel especially hard to take, especially after all these balmy conditions that we've been enjoying over the last day or two.
Yeah, it's sort of a partial pattern change because I'm going to bring up that Arctic oscillation again on the screen so everybody can see what I'm talking about. And there you have it. Uh, it's the top chart, and you'll notice that peak is actually 5 standard deviations from the mean of zero. When the Arctic oscillation is positive, it's usually warm in the eastern part of the United States. Now, it is going to start to crash very rapidly down to the neutral line, and by the end of the forecast period, actually goes below. So it is indicating a change, at least as far as temperatures are concerned. But it may do all of that without bringing much, if any, rainfall. It looks like it's going to stay dry right through. I think it's going to stay dry for the most part, unless there's an isolated shower or two with any cold front that goes by. It could very well stay dry right into the first early days of November.
Well, it's certainly the pattern has been, if anything, not non-changing, at least here in the east, and we're waiting for some signals that would suggest that we're going to be going into a different type of pattern. Although even at the Climate Prediction Center, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, they're still saying above normal temperatures right on into at least the first week of November, if not beyond, and also below normal precipitation. It just
Yeah,
in fact, Joe and I, we were just folks, we were kidding, before we came on the air tonight. I said, so what do we do after tonight's show is over? Should we pre-tape tomorrow night's show and run it? So, I mean, like, there's not much to talk about. It's one of those patterns that, and meanwhile, while all this is happening, while it's been bone dry here across much of the eastern seaboard, Joe, did you hear about what happened in Roswell, New Mexico over the weekend? They pretty much had half a year's worth of rainfall in less than 24 hours. They normally only get about uh, 12 inches of rain for the entire year. And in parts of Roswell, they had like something like 6 inches, which, parts of our area saw something like that in August. But for them, it's like almost devastating because, again, it's
sure.
like half a year's rain coming in only 24 hours time.
Well, that's this twist that you see on the satellite loop that's now up in Kansas. It's moved out. Yesterday it was in Colorado and into eastern New Mexico. That's why they had the flash flood warnings that they had, the flash flood watches that they had up for the eastern half of the state, and it certainly played out according to plan. But otherwise, when you look at this map, that twist is moving north northeastward. Kind of stands out like a sore thumb in a sea of clear skies from California to Maine. Now there is cloudiness and rain going on in the Pacific Northwest, and that really is not the only place. The mean trough is in the western part of the United States. The mean ridge is in the eastern part of the United States. And you put that on top of the fact that October is usually for many areas in the east, it's the driest month of the year. We've had cloud-free days. These days have been so cloud-free. It's been amazing. And October, I think, is like as I think you've said this before. October is the month where you have the most number of days with clear skies. I think that covers a good chunk of the East Coast.
It's it's been uh, it's been amazing. Every day I wake up, I look out the window, and I do my sarcastic Morticia Adams comment. Oh, Gomez, another dreary day.
Another day of miserable sunshine.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If you're lurking in the background, as we know many people do, including Taylor Swift, you've heard she's here tonight, lurking in the background. Um, Subscribe to my YouTube channel and don't be a lurker. If you subscribe, you can join the conversation on the chat board, which gets lively at times. We would love to see you there. Make sure you turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And if there's ever a storm around on a Friday and Saturday, we'll be on. If there's ever a storm at all, we'll be on. Meanwhile, Joe, Oscar uh, becomes the smallest hurricane ever
That is
observed. The
that was a declaration by the National Hurricane Center.
Apparently so. I saw it in a news article on the internet, so it must be true.
Right.
But apparently, there was it's very interesting. I'm going to bring up the floater image. Uh, it made landfall, but from the Hurricane Center's viewpoint, as a Category 1. However, this was such a small hurricane. The hurricane force winds extended out 6 miles from the center, which apparently is the lowest that they've ever measured. Um, some of the Canadian satellite data suggested that the smallness of the storm was not really well handled at all by the models because the models are, the global models don't, they pick up the bigger features. This feature it was basically a glorified severe thunderstorm, which is why you can't really specifically forecast tornadoes and severe thunderstorms in pinpoint locations because uh, they are, I mean, literally very, very tiny events. Well, this is very, very tiny hurricane. They said that some of the Canadian satellite data suggested that this might have actually been a Cat 2 or a Cat 3 on landfall. But that's not confirmed by the Hurricane Center. That was just something that was in the article. But you can see what's happening now. The center is on land. It's also become very disorganized. It's barely a tropical storm. 21 north, 76.1 west, moving north northwest at 7. It's going to come out over the open waters of the Atlantic, and it is going to move. Let's see, the Hurricane Center's forecast has been pretty consistent. Tropical storm warnings are up for the southeast Bahamas, and it's going to turn northeastward, run up into the Atlantic, and eventually it'll just get absorbed by a low that's developing not too far from, or will be developing not too far from Bermuda. So that'll get rid of that. And it should also be pointed out, Joe, that what was Nadine to a large extent is now Tropical Storm Christy in the Pacific. And that is moving westward. And it is forecast to become a hurricane, gradually turning west northwest and northwestward as it gets further out into the Pacific hurricane graveyard. So the Pacific is behind the Atlantic, which you would expect in a pseudo La Nina year, whatever the La Nina is doing. They're only up to K. We're through the O, and at least for the rest of this week, we probably won't have any tropical storms or hurricanes to deal with. None of this stuff is affecting the United States
All right, well, we're still stuck at 15 then,
for now.
for now.
For now. Um, anyway, here's back to the satellite that you can see it here. Here's what the radar looks like tonight. We actually have some thunderstorms and some severe weather going on in parts of Kansas. You see the yellow boxes there. There's a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings in north central Kansas and south central Nebraska. There's a line of storms moving right toward Miss Fallerite if she's on the chat board. The line of storms there from eastern Nebraska down through eastern Kansas, near Topeka, and eventually getting over maybe toward Kansas City. Otherwise, it's some showery rains, some mountain snows up in the Pacific Northwest, and a couple of spots of rain off the Florida coast, and that's it. That's all you got. Storm Prediction Center's got a severe thunderstorm watch up in that area in central Kansas to southernmost Nebraska. It's inside an area of slight risk of severe weather. But that upper low, Joe's going north, so there's no severe weather risk indicated for tomorrow, nor is there any severe weather risk indicated for Wednesday into Thursday. And here's a shocker: more than half the country is in white here, meaning no rain. Look at that.
It's and as I said at the start of the show, notice, if you will, that again, upstate New York and parts of northern New England are about the only places in the east that will be seeing significant rain, more than just a trace. There's also a bit of precipitation right along the immediate coastal plain of Florida. But aside from that, it appears it's going to be bone dry for the next 7 days, including right here in the tri-state metropolitan area. That's 7 plus 21. Today is October 21st. 7 plus 21 means that October 28th we may still be dry as a bone, and that means that we would be within 3 days of the all-time driest month ever, any month, beating the old record of 2/100ths of an inch set back in June of 1949 at Central Park. So we'll see.
Um, oh, I was going to say, when was the last time it rained for you?
I believe we actually had a pretty good rain here. I think on the 29th of September. I could check into that, but I think it was the 29th of September. So we actually ended September on a dry note, and we have since then fairly much continued that. I think there was the one trace, quote unquote, of precipitation in October came on the 9th, and other than that, it's been bone dry. Frank R says September 29th here. So yeah, I think that was the day. September 29th was the last significant rain that we've had here in Putnam Valley and probably for much of the tri-state area. And that's what? That's 21, that's 23 days ago. So it's incredible.
It sure is. Oh, it's hard. Uh, when it's like this, it's unusual to see it just this dry for this long. But you got some spotty precip over the next 7 days around the Great Lakes. That's with this next cold front and all of that rain with that, which is not going to be much, is all going to dry up before it reaches the east anyhow. You've got some heavier rains up in the Pacific Northwest and in the Northern Rockies. Some mountain snows are going to be in the mix there too. But everybody else, I guess after you have two major hurricanes in 2 weeks, this is sort of the atmosphere. This is, I guess, sort of the atmosphere's way of exhaling.
Yeah,
You know,
indeed, indeed.
a lot of times after you have a major events, you usually do go into a quiet period. And we had two major hurricanes inside of 2 weeks, uh, and the atmosphere is just like, okay, I got nothing left for you. So all the wind has been sucked out. So, on that note, we take a look at if we run through the surface of the GFS, and this is off the latest run. We have a weather front here. Wait, hold on, I had it too far ahead. So we've got a weather front here on Wednesday, which has no rain. I mean, you have to go up into Canada to get rain, and northern Maine, northern Vermont, New Hampshire. That's it. A shot of cool air behind it. So we'll get temperatures back down towards seasonal. Looks like another front will come in on Friday night, Saturday morning, or during the day Saturday. That's not going to have much of anything with it. And then it looks like a chillier high built in for Sunday and Monday. Now that's going to go out to the east off the Carolinas. So we may wind up with another big warm up going into Halloween. And now we're going into the month of November, and we're still waiting for something to happen as far as a cold front and rain. And it looks like maybe on Sunday the 3rd, it's got some sort of weather front coming through with some rain, and then a colder shot of air a couple of days after that. And but other than that, I mean, there's really not much to add here. If we look at the tropics, the one thing I would point out, I'll use the Western Atlantic view, is that while all this is going on in the east with this, higher than normal pressures both at the surface and aloft, in the Caribbean, you're still dealing with below normal pressures here. And the Bruns are, doing their game where, they're trying to develop something in the Southwest Caribbean. We had one run earlier that wanted to take it, northeastward through the Caribbean, out near Puerto Rico, and then up into the open waters of the Atlantic. This one has got it more suppressed to the south, kind of like what just happened with Nadine, where it goes into Honduras or Belize, and then makes its way westward. I guess both possibilities are certainly doable, but uh, the Oscar, of course, you can see it here. The L that's on the Cuban coast moves northeast, becomes part of a developing low near Bermuda, and then that goes on its merry way into the open waters of the Atlantic. And when we sort of check the upper air going forward, it's there's not much, not very revealing. The blue that you see up in Canada, I mean, that's where your colder air is. We still have basically a westerly flow. Another trough drops down into the west. Another ridge builds into the east next week, gets us through Halloween and All Saints Day. And, after that, it tries to start bringing troughing into the eastern part of the United States toward the end of the forecast period, which I guess, I mean, it would seem logical. We've been in this sort of pattern here of dry conditions since the beginning of September. Uh, X out the two hurricanes in those two areas in the east where they got them. It probably will be time sometime in early November for some sort of pattern shift, some sort of broad scale pattern shift. I would think can't stay like this forever. Well, maybe it can. I don't know.
Well, the question about when was the last time we had any significant, I just did a little bit of a check here. From the 26th to the 29th, at Central Park, they had 1.30 inches of rain, most of it coming on the 29th, 0.78. That was the last time we had any kind of significant rainfall, really. Significant more than a trace was back on September 29th. But it's interestingly, Joe, the 26th to the 29th, 1.30 inches. That was 82% of the total amount of precipitation that fell in September. September was a below normal month in terms of precipitation, only amounting to 1.58 inches, and 1.3 of those came over the span from the 26th through the 29th of September. So we had a little bit of
So now we're at today's the 21st. You said that happened on the 29th of September.
correct.
So that means we've had 22 straight days with no rain.
Yeah,
And didn't we have 16 or 17 days in a row with no rain going into that date?
going into what, September
Going into
29th?
September 29th, didn't we have a streak of like 16 or
As I
17?
as I said, we had on the 26th and 27th. It did rain, although nowhere near the more than three quarters of an inch they had on the 29th. And yeah, they I don't have the I exited out. But I think when you consider that for the balance from September 1st through the 25th, they apparently only about a quarter of an inch of rain spread out
Right, and
over
that
the.
was early, that was like in the first days of the month. I just remember that we had a streak in September. I forgot how many days it was. My point was just to add it with this one and just basically say that 39 of the last 40 days have been no rain. Something along those lines.
Yep, yep.
That's just crazy.
It's crazy. It is. It
Yeah.
is.
All right, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy because we really don't have much else to do here on our podcast. I'm sad to say.
Well, I have the questions from the chairman here, and we will go to them momentarily. Here we go. On this Briller Jeopardy, Joe, average low temperatures in October in the following cities. These are the average October low temperatures. And we start off with Jacksonville, Florida, the average low temperature in October.
Okay. Average low temperature in October. Go ahead.
Jacksonville. Did I say that?
Oh, Jackson. No, you didn't say Jacksonville.
Oh,
Jacksonville,
I'm sorry.
Florida.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry.
Uh, well, Michael McGuire says 59. Vincent Croce says 57. John Melander 61. Jason Fox 62. William Uber 67. I'll say 63.
Well, William Huber's in Snake Country. You're close, but you're a little bit on the low side.
Right. 67. So we're talking either 66 or 68. I'll say 66.
WNBC. Correct. 66. That's the average low,
66.
average low in October.
Boxcars.
That's right.
Boxcars.
No, don't say that because
Like,
if you
no,
say
I'm not
that,
allowed. I
if you
know.
say that, somebody is going to get very upset
Yeah.
and they're going to complain.
Yes,
So
exactly.
do that. How about Kansas City?
Kansas City. Kansas
Kansas
City, here I
City,
come.
I come.
Uh, hmm, Kansas, I kind of know. Hmm, it's a tough one. I'll say 49. He comes into my head.
All things considered, that's a pretty good guess. It's a little on the mild side or warm side, but still a pretty good guess.
Adam Lowe says 48.
Uh,
And Rich Rothmansky's at double fours.
well,
And,
a,
and
a
Vincent
four,
Croce says 45.
well, now you're getting Yeah, well, the Vincent Croce is in snake country with his 45. Let's put
Well,
it that way.
Mike Waterhouse Bonsai at 46 and Frank Scalera and William Uber are all at 46.
46 is correct. 46.
I should have flipped the 9 to a 6.
Now we go to Mary Richards' favorite hometown,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Uh, I don't know.
You remember?
40.
I know you're a Mary Tyler Moore fan. Do you remember in the first season of Mary Tyler Moore, they did a show where it was election night and
Yes.
a blizzard hit,
Yes.
and there was no
No, no,
new
no, no
result.
returns coming in. The numbers only moved when Rhoda was kissing the other guy.
It was stuck at it was the mayor race in Minneapolis, and it was Turner 85, Mitchell 23,
Right.
and
Well,
not every year, but almost every year that I was at News 12, and they had me stay until like 1:30 in the morning because we did a post-election show at 1:30, and we had to do it live and then tape it or whatever. Almost every year on the weather map, I put on the national map Turner 85, Mitchell 23.
well, William Uber's got 42.
Oh,
Um,
Huber,
Rece-
you're snake country there with
Snake
that one.
Country with 42. Rich Rothmansky has 43. I was going to say 43.
You should have gone the
And,
other way.
okay. So it's 41 from Miss
Miss
Fowlerite then.
Spallerite, and that's Miss Spallerite. I'm going to give Miss Spallerite my ring of approval. Congratulations. There was one part of there that when Mary goes into Lou Grant's office and says, "Why can't we run an old movie since we're not getting any results, any election results?" And the great Ed Asner, I still remember this scene. It was probably one of the best scenes in Mary Tyler Moore history. He looks at Mary and he says, "That's a good question, but somebody doesn't know anything about this business. We sold our election coverage to sponsors. They don't have to pay us unless we give them election night coverage. So, unless there's an old movie out there called Election Night Coverage."
Right.
How about New Orleans, Joe?
Oh God. Lately my head has just not been in this. What do we say for Jacksonville?
66.
I'll say 62.
Ooh, well, I know Rich Rodmansky also went 62, but Adam Lowe hit it right on the nose along with Vincent Croce
That's
at
64.
64.
Okay.
64. And number 5 is Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. I'm trying to remember. What was New York's yesterday? I don't remember. Did we even do New York? Oh God, why is this like really? I'm getting really bad at this. Um,
Well, I
oh
can tell you what, Central Park, is that what you're looking for?
yeah.
51.
For Philadelphia, I'll say 53.
Strange. I would have gone higher than Central Park too, except no,
It's actually lower.
it's actually lower.
Oh wow.
And Frank
Um,
Scalera is in Snake Country with his 48.
48. So I'm gonna guess it's 49.
And you're right, it's 49.
49.
And now for the last one, the bonus question, Death Valley.
Oh, how the hell should I know? It could be 36. It could be 36 in the morning and 115 in the afternoon. I I got to imagine it's cool. It's relatively cool. I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even begin to know what to pick. So I'll say 55.
That's a little bit too cool, Joe.
Okay.
But
Um,
Vincent
I mean, because
Croce,
that could be anything.
Vincent Croce 64 and Adam Lowe is 62. And let me just simply say, you guys are surrounding the answer. So
Oh, so then therefore the answer is 63.
that's right.
Okay, I should have said that. Oh, good God.
So
Well, I don't have much to add here. Like I said, it's been while it's quiet, we'll just keep, we'll come on and, maybe around tomorrow or Wednesday, I might say that we won't have a show on Thursday. I don't know.
Well, like I said, if you want to tape tomorrow's show right after we sign off tonight, we could do that.
Well, I tell you, if we're going to take a day off, if we're going to take a day off, I would prefer it to be I prefer it to be Sunday.
You know what we
Uh,
ought to do? We ought to, like they used to do on the Tonight Show. You and I both take off, and we have a guest meteorologist sitting in for us.
yeah, that there's that. I
Call
could re-
call call Alan and see.
I could rerun an old show. I could go back to last year. If I've got everything's in the library. I could go back and pull up last year's show for the date and
Right.
run it as a premiere. Of course, I mean our regulars on the chat board would even if I didn't tell them I was doing it, they would figure it out. But if somebody else is watching at home, they would think that, oh my God, what planet is this on?
At News 12 Westchester, we had as our station manager for many years, and he passed away about 10 or 12 years ago, Arnie Reef. And Arnie worked for many, many years, and he used to proudly, Joe, display in his office all the Emmys that he won. I think he won like 6 or 7 Emmys. I'm not talking about these little dinky Emmys that we get with the local awards.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
he
national
had,
ones that require you to hold it with two hands.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, these are big, whats. And And one of Arnie's jobs was this is back before Saturday Night Live. Before Saturday Night Live came along on NBC at 11:30 on Saturday night, you could watch the best of Carson, the best of the Tonight Show, and it was Arnie's job to take those old shows and edit them to conform or fit in such a way so that they could add a few extra commercials or whatever. Well, one Arnie cut, I think, a bit out of a show that Johnny used to actually watch those shows. The best of Carson. He used to watch those on Saturday night, and apparently Arnie cut something out that Johnny did not like, and Johnny was like on the phone, screaming at whoever was at Channel Four at like 11:58 p.m., saying, "Oh, who did that? Who cut out my Art Fern or my?"
I'll have his head for this.
Needless to say, Arnie. After that week, Arnie no longer did. I mean, he was still with NBC for a while longer, but he was no longer the person who was editing the best of Carson. So
Uh,
they
all
they
right.
the best of Joe and Joe, and somebody will be watching and say, "Hey, I remember that show. Why did they cut?" You know,
Right, exactly. All right, let's hang it up here, folks. Thanks for being here. Eventually, the weather will pick up, but not now, and not for a while. So we'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't think you're going to see much in the way of changes, but we'll be here anyway. Night, night.
99, folks.